James, thank you so much for joining me today.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Today, we're going to be having a conversation around something that we were just talking pre-hitting record, that I think it's fair to say that you have quite an expert voice in, and that is sales. But sales is such a big word, and we're definitely going to break that down into actually what does that mean and what does it not mean, which I think is really important, because I think for many people, you hear the word sales and the connotations that are brought up are not necessarily the right ones. So I wanted to just dive in, first of all, with a bit about you. So I gather you have quite an interesting background before you did what you're doing now in corporate. And I believe there's some shocking statistic about never missing a sales target. And I'd love to hear more about that.
There is, but I like to reassure people that I worried about it every single month. So I know this is why I don't have any hair. So yeah, I never sat on my laurels. But I had a 12-year career with Mercedes-Benz, Daimler Mercedes-Benz. I was a key account manager, and over those 12 years, I did about 600 million quid worth of business for them, which is easier when each individual unit is 30, 40 grand a piece, of course. But no, I never missed a target in that time. But I did worry about every single target. But the sad thing, the realization I came to was you can be really good at something, but not actually enjoy it and like it. And I got to this stage where my wife had my first child, and I was thinking, oh my God, I don't want to be here. Like, I hate this. I don't want to do this. Although I'm good at it, I don't like it. What can I do? What can I do? So I ended up going out into kind of like the big wide world and talking to people. And I found networking and BNI and all this kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And I remember chatting to a guy, and he said, and it's laughable now, because at the time he said, you should just, I was like, I don't know what to do. He said, we should just teach people how to sell. I was like, don't be silly. How can I do that? He said, well, you're clearly good at what you're doing. Just decode that, understand it, and then teach it. And that really lit a fire under me, because as good as I was at selling, I had the same connotations that other people had of, it's sleazy and you're pushing and you're lying, etc. That's not how I behave at all. But when I give talks, I sort of encourage people to Google salesman, saleswoman, sales team. You'll see all these Wolf of Wall Street and all this kind of very caricature-esque things for sales and selling. But I realized through my own practice that being honest, genuinely caring about people, and just always doing the right thing and just thinking what's in your best interest, even if that wasn't in mine, that's what I would be advising you do and helping you with. That was really the secret. I mean, there's a lot more technicals beyond that. Like I said to you before, I've got nearly 900 things in my methodology. There's a lot more very specific things to do. But having a genuine care for people and doing the right thing and not trying to take advantage of them is one of the big things that I really want to extol to people. But nobody really believes you, because they think you're just saying that to sound virtuous. But it's true. So I was told that I should teach people how to sell. I ended up falling into BNI, Business Networking International, the networking organization. And from there, I work with some people for free, because I don't know I'm going to sell. So I now know it's called product market fit. At the time, I was like, I just need to work on what I'm doing. So I spoke to a few people and said, look, I'll work with you for free. I can definitely help you sell more stuff. I've got 600 million reasons to tell me it's probably going to work, but I don't actually know what this is going to look like. So you're not going to pay me. I'm going to learn, and we're both going to win. How does that sound? So I had 6 people say, yeah, sounds good to me.
Hell yes.
Yeah, of course they did. And the very first question that I would have with them is, so tell me about your business. And I realized very quickly, and it sounds a bit flippant when I say this, but nobody can say what they do for a living, ultimately, particularly in like a networking space. If I start asking questions of what do you do and how does it work and why should I choose you? Can't we do this ourselves? Why are you so expensive? Really simple, basic buyer questions can floor most salespeople and most business people, because they'll either struggle, and it's obvious when somebody's struggling for the answer, or they'll give you too short an answer and you're left wanting. I'm a photographer. Okay, great. So what kind of thing? Or they'll give you a really, really long round the houses answer, and you're telling them, so you're a photographer then? Yes, that's what I... And it was just, it's all wrong. And I realized that nobody really prepares for this communication piece. Selling is communication. That's literally it. It's just how we communicate to people. But because of all this baggage and all the movies and everything else, people are so terrified of it that they've forgotten what it really is. It's just a conversation with money at the end. That's what selling actually is. And if you can relax into that conversation and your only goal is to do what's best for the person you're talking to, and shock horror, that might be that they don't buy from you. And as long as you can make peace with that, you'll do very well. And so from those first few clients, it then snowballed from there. And then I remember distinctly, I sat down in a prep on Baker Street thinking, this stuff's working, but I don't know why it's working. I should probably understand how this works. So I started Googling cognitive biases and heuristics and how your mind works and all this kind of stuff. Because my principal question was, well, why can't you tell me what you do for a living? Like if you do it and you're good at it, why can't you explain it very well? And it turns out there's something called the false, as in incorrect, the false consensus effect, which means you see the world from your point of view. You talk about things that matter to you in terms you understand, and you presume everybody has the same consensus as you, the same perspective. But by definition, they don't. Different ages, races, genders, life experience, all sorts of things in the mix. So what happens is I'm talking to you in the way I want to be spoken to and sold to. That's not always a match for you. It's seldom a match for you. As a result, it's not going to work. And that's where people feel the need to substitute that with all of these techniques and pressure and, well, if you don't buy on this call, we're going to remove the offer and all this kind of nonsense, because they're just not getting the basics right. So the false consensus effect, which is a sort of cognitive bias, a heuristic, it's just a way that we think. That was the very, very first thing that I documented. And it got a bit moreish from there. And like I say, I'm at about 900 now of just noticing what works, what doesn't, how we communicate, how we don't, and then articulating that in a way that anybody can follow my methodology and sell, but be more confident too, which is in the mix there. Because if you're not relaxed and confident when you're talking to people, it's obvious, and I'm not going to buy from you because I deem you to be desperate. So, but when you know what you're talking about and you know where the conversation is going to go, and you're happy if they buy or they don't, and you're confident, the game changes. And there you go. That's my history.
There's probably about 3 million follow-up questions that I have from what you've said already. Let's start with the bias that you just mentioned, because I find that really, really interesting. So I completely understand what you're saying. Like what feels like it makes sense in my head is absolutely not going to be the same for everyone. How does someone well, number one, how do you acknowledge that that's happening, and number two, how do you overcome it?
So this comes back to, and you and your listeners and viewers have probably seen this before. There's a picture, there's a number on the floor, and there's two people there. This person sees a 6, this person sees a 9. Mm-hmm. Neither of them are correct or incorrect. It's just their perspective. So what this actually is that the whole features and benefits argument. Lots of people struggle by talking about features. So this is the mouse and this is what it does. And here are the, it does the battery life and blah, blah, blah. And what we don't do is bridge that gap. So I care about that mouse because I invented it and I know all about it. It's 24 gigahertz this and blah, blah, blah. And the person at the receiving end of that is thinking, so what? Well, why should I care about that? So a really simple way to bridge that gap is 4 words. What that means is. What that means is. So, it's got a little like laser thing on the bottom of the mouse. So it refreshes at 24 million gigahertz per gigasecond or whatever. Great, I don't care. What that means is it's extremely accurate. So when you're doing very fine work with your mouse, or if it's moving quickly, it will keep up with you. Now I get it. So it's bridging that gap. So what that means for you, why should you care about it? Most people, naturally, it's human nature. It's the reason I'm in business. Will stop at blah, 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 technicals and jargon, and they won't bridge the gap.
So and it's like the old selling the drill versus selling the hole in the wall, right? So
yeah,
the outcomes and benefits. So you can tie it to your features, but going into kind of the, I suppose, benefits is what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's features and benefits and outcomes, but it's done in a way that's real to you, because we've all heard the drill and the whole thing, and we intellectually we get, oh yeah, I heard of that, and then we'll continue to make the same, and then we'll continue to make the same mistake. So it doesn't work. So for me, a big part of the work that I do is giving people really practical, in the moment frameworks that they can rely upon and use to stop it, because there's no point intellectually understanding that and on the next call after this one I get it wrong and nobody buys from me because I'm talking about the wrong thing. My way of articulating it is slightly different. So I use planes and plane seats. So in an airline advert, you'll very rarely see a plane or a plane seat in the advert. You'll see Eiffel Tower, Paris, etc. What they want you to do is look contextually at that image and how you're going to feel being there. There's one I use quite a lot. It's got kangaroos in it. So you're going to feel how you are on the beach with the kangaroos, and you kind of place yourself there. And the point that I'm making there is, would you like a holiday versus would you like to buy a plane seat are two very different questions, but they're also kind of the same. And it's that nuance that makes the difference. But connecting with people on a human and more often than not feeling and emotional level, that's the trick, for want of a better term. So if you understand what your buyers are really buying, and you shape your messaging towards that. So going back, and it's funny because whenever I have these kind of things, I pick these weird banal examples. Today we're talking about mice for some reason. So with this mouse example, so let's say the little laser thing does like a super quick refresh rate, whatever. Who cares about that? Well, people that do design work in Photoshop, I should imagine. So if I'm here saying to you, I know that, pixel perfect accuracy is important for you and speed. Oh, absolutely. That's why it's got a 3 million gigahertz, blah, blah, blah refresh speed. It's to solve that problem for you. Ah, brilliant. So I'm just connecting the dots for you, ultimately. But what that means is how we go from feature to benefit in conversation.
And what you're explaining there in terms of sales and communication, and again, I think this comes back to kind of the perception of sales can sometimes make us think of the sales call, which is just the close, right?
Yeah.
But sales is a process, and especially now, I say now, but over the last, let's say, decade, where there's so much opportunity for like content and socials and in and offline things. Where does sales start? Where does that messaging start? How do you now distinguish sales from marketing, and where does it all begin?
Well, you can't really distinguish sales from marketing because they're two sides of the same coin as far as I'm concerned. But for me, and it gets a bit contentious on my clients sometimes, the name of your business, product or service, that's the start of that selling conversation. So I trade as clear sales message. I picked the name years ago because I liked it. It was not more complicated than that. I realized retrospectively what I did was I accidentally selected what's known as a schema. So we take the notion of clear, and that means easy to understand. Sales means money. Message means communication. You put those three things together, and in 3 words, you can guess at what you think I do. And you should be right, or at least in the ballpark. If I'd called myself James Newell Consulting or Purple Peach something or whatever, something abstract, it doesn't work, unfortunately. So I've got this real issue with businesses where their names of their products and services don't actually articulate or even allude to what's on offer, because you're literally falling down at the first hurdle. It's funny, one of my sayings is, and I've got quite a few of these, and somebody on LinkedIn said, you should write a book of these. So I did. So I've got literally like 70 different like soundbite things that I say. But one of them is explanations are expensive. So if I call myself clear sales message and you get it, and if my competitors call blah, blah, pink banana, whatever, they're the same thing as me, but they don't get it, I'm more likely to win that business. I could be worse than that person in terms of deliverable, but because you've understood it, I've got your attention at least, if not the business. So to answer your question, that's where it begins in the naming of the business, the product or the service. And I've got a whole methodology around how we do that. But for me, conversational names and really obvious explicit names are my absolute go-to, because if you can explain what you're doing to a child, so if you get an 8, 9, 10-year-old child, if they understand what you do, then arguably anybody's going to understand what you're doing. But that's where it begins, with the name.
You're going to have to give me some tips then, because my son keeps saying to me, like, Mummy, he doesn't say to me, what do you do? He says, Mummy, what are you going to do when you grow up? Which is even worse.
Well, I don't plan on growing up. So.
I'll let you know.
Yeah, that's it. It's a long way away.
One day I'll figure it out and let you know, Jack. But yeah, but you're right. If you can explain it to a small child, and that's actually really hard to simplify it to that context.
But it comes to the next level of what we're talking about here. So the reason we find sales and selling so difficult, and bearing in mind this is all communication, at no point I'm going to say, what you need to do is say this magic word and apply this pressure. It's nonsense. So the next thing we've got to think about is, in the UK, the average reading age is 9 years of age. And that's an average. So there's people above that and below that. And however you feel about that, it's just, that's how we go. The Sun newspaper is written for like 9 and 10-year-olds, and the Times is written for 12-year-olds. So it's the number of words, the number of syllables, the density of the sentence. So some people are picking names and using terms. It's not even jargon. It's just slightly unfamiliar. It's just taking them too long to get to the point. And we're losing people because their average reading age is low, and also attention span is low. I mean, how quickly does it take for you to flick through a reel or a TikTok video? I don't even know. Yep, no, yep. I couldn't even tell you how I'm making those decisions, but I am very, very quickly. So it's never been more important. Obviously, I'm biased when I say this, right? But it's never been more important just to get to the point, so people understand it. And this is why in society, things like WeBuyAnyCar.com, things like that really catch on, because it's just stupidly obvious. And for me, that's where you should try to be. I lecture at UCL on my methodology, and one of the students there a couple of years ago said I shouldn't be called clear sales message. I should be called obvious sales message, because a lot of the stuff I talk about is pointing out the obvious, really.
So are you saying that the main reason people don't buy is because they just don't understand what it is that you're selling?
Yeah, it's definitely up there. Obviously, I'm super biased by the nature of what I do. So they don't understand, or they understand what you're offering, but they don't know why they should care about that. We're not bridging that features and benefits gap. So you could look at the technical specs of an iPhone or anything, and if you don't understand what that means for you, you're not going to buy it. And we've had this before. Where, I've had this before in my life. Where I haven't bought something, or somebody's not bought from me, and then you connect the dots after. It's, well, why didn't you say? That's exactly what I need. So the dots are not being connected. And my argument is that, so this comes down to a legal term called the burden of proof. So as a seller, the burden of proof is on you to make the case. So if somebody doesn't understand your offering or connect it or understand why they should care, it's frustrating, but it's entirely your fault. And you have to take responsibility for it, because if you don't, you'll suffer the consequence. But it's endemic. It's absolutely endemic. And so out of those 6 people that I worked with at the start, all of them needed what I was doing, all of them. And then going forward, 8 or 9 out of the 10 businesses I talk to a lesser or greater degree, need messaging. And it comes down to brand guidelines. So these logos, these fonts, these colors, we understand that. We either have it or we know we should have it. Everything's uniform, everything's the same. And yet when we pick up the phone or we send an email, there's no guideline. We say whatever we feel like. And if you're hungry, you need the toilet, you've just come back from holiday, you forget something, you wax lyrical on something else, there's no real structure to the conversation. And it's not to say that we need scripts and turn people into robots. But if I say, hey, why should I buy from you? If I can get around the houses answer from you, oh, well, we're professional, reliable and affordable, which is what most people will do, with all due respect to most people. And it's not very compelling. Whereas if you say, well, actually, James, there's 3 main reasons why people buy from us. It's this, and it's this, and then it's this. And from our conversation, I think point number 2, blah, blah, I think that's the one that's most relevant for you. Am I right? Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's that. That's what's missing from the conversations, that connection of, is this the right thing for me? You were talking about sales calls a minute ago. My approach to a sales call at the very start is, let's see if I can help you, first of all. If I can help you, and then if I can, then we'll talk about what it might look like. I'm not entering that call thinking, oh yes, I can't wait to close this person. Like, no, I need to qualify you first of all. Why do you think a clear sales message is going to help you? That's my first question. And then we go from there, because it's the start of everything. And
by doing that, you're almost getting that person to themselves clarify what their problem is, rather than you doing that for them, right?
Well, they're telling me what matters to them, right? Well, I think it is because we can't do this, we can't do that, we can't do that, this is difficult. As long as those are things I can help with, great. Well, let me specifically tell you how I can help you solve those problems with a clear sales message. So yeah, so there's nothing manipulative or underhanded there. I'm just literally essentially saying, tell me what matters to you, and I will tell you if I can help you with that. So it's really simple.
And there's something interesting that you said a minute ago when you said that somebody said, why should I buy from you? And I suspect this is intentional. Your answer was the reason people buy from us. So you turned that away from why you should buy.
Yes.
This is why others buy. And is that sort of bringing social proof or something into it in a subconscious way?
Yeah, 100%. Because what we've got to be very careful of is we can't be telling the buyer things, because then that is that manipulation. That a buyer should always be in control and feel in control. And if you make any effort to take that control away from them, they will feel it. And we've all been on calls and had meetings like this where we can feel that pressure. It's like, well, if you don't buy on this call and blah, 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 we don't like it. And for me, the North Star is, if you don't like it as a buyer, so if you don't like being manipulated and pressured and lied to and treated in this way, which, let's be honest, who does, then why on earth are you doing that when you're selling to people? The answer is because, without sounding rude, it's probably because you don't know any better. You don't know a better way to do it. So you're replicating a behavior that you've seen, but allowing people that choice. So yeah, there is social proof that this is why people buy from us. But then I'm also saying, I think it's this reason that's relevant for you. Am I right in saying that? So I'm seeking your approval there. I'm connecting the dots. I'm kind of guessing around here. I'm not going to tell you, you should, but it's definitely going to do this for you. Yeah, no problem. And you're not even involved in that decision. So it's that. But then at the other end, we've got the real wishy-washy, oh, well, we're really passionate about what we do and we've been established for a long time and blah, blah, blah. And they might be useful things to know, but without what that means without you telling me why I should care what that means, I may never connect that dot or care about it.
So some of the things that you talk about are, in a great way, really quite different to what you would expect somebody who's kind of like really thinking sales talked about. And I stress, I think this is a great thing. Something that springs to mind specifically that you kind of mentioned a moment ago, and I think you alluded to kind of like that scarcity and urgency is a lot of the time it's this kind of like, you know, give people a deadline. And I guess, you know, statistically it's kind of known to work, but I think you sort of think quite differently on that, don't you, around those tactics.
So scarcity and urgency are wonderful, but they have to be real. There's so many, it always makes me laugh when you see, you know, it's the early bird offer, get your tickets now, whatever. Oh, it's been so popular, we've extended our early bird offer. You think, well, hang on a minute, guys. If it's that popular, why do you need to continue? Like, come on, we can see what you're doing. Or my favorite one is, it's selling really fast, you should hurry up and buy. Well, if it was selling so fast, why are you having to tell me that? So my answer to your question is like, just be honest and genuine. So yeah, I close quite a lot of my clients because I look forward in my calendar. So, well, I'm planning Q2. I've got this many slots left. If you'd like to do it, let me know. If not, that's okay too. But it's genuine. It's absolutely genuine. And people can tell when they're being lied to. I really believe that. You know when you're being lied to because, I mean, I haven't got the hairstyle to be a hippie, but there's definitely energy exchange that goes on when we're talking to people. And you can tell very quickly if I know what I'm talking about, if I'm misleading you or talking about things that maybe I don't 100% know about, but I'm trying to sound clever to you. We kind of get that feeling. So there's something called emotional contagion. So if you ever walk into a room full of happy, upbeat people, you go, oh, this is great. You feel upbeat as well. And the reverse is also true. Or if you've got a good friend of yours, some people are radiators and some people are drains, right? Some people radiate energy and it's lovely to be around them. Other people are just so much hard work and you just can't wait to leave. So you're kind of mirroring how they're feeling. And that happens on a sales call. But we think we're so clever that if I tell you, oh, well, if you can't buy now, there's special offers over, blah, blah, blah. I'm so wonderful. You're not going to tell me you know the reality, but you're going to form conclusions about me. So, yeah, just honesty and authenticity. And it's funny because the things that I advocate are just so achingly damn simple, but nobody does them because they feel like it has to be this really contrived, well, a bit of neurolinguistic programming here. Say this word, touch your nose as you do that and dance on the spot. It's not complicated. Be honest, be genuine, actually care. Don't be afraid to push people away. The amount of people that I talked and said, you know what, I don't think this is a good move for you right now. You definitely need my help, but it's not the first thing. You should probably do this or do that or not now for you, whatever. I'll happily push people away because it's the right thing to do.
And on because I love what you were saying about kind of the subconscious and the energies and the vibes that we give off and frequencies and all of that. And I massively buy into, well, it's not something to buy into. It's, you know, it's a thing.
It's there, isn't it?
It's there. So taking it into the context of a business owner that perhaps is feeling the pressure to make some sales for their business, inevitably, they won't be able to help that there is an element of, I really need to get this freaking sale over the line. Do you have any tactics or any things that you can do so that doesn't get in the way of a relationship in a sales context?
Not that specifically, but it's kind of solved through the work that I'm doing. I would say in that situation, because this is what happens, we don't do a great job of selling, and then deadlines hit, mortgage payments come up, etc. Like, oh my God. And that then exacerbates it. So that's when the tactics really come out because people really think that they need this to close things down. My advice in that situation is to look at who you're really selling to, what they're really buying, and where you can find them. So a trigger point is the best thing. Most of the time we know who we're selling to, but we're not talking to them at the correct moment in time. So the sales cycle can take forever. So I always use the example, and I tempt fate every time I do this, but I'm an ideal client for a plumber. I've got bathrooms, toilets, pipework, taps, boiler, etc. But I don't need anything right now. If something leaks or breaks or I want to upgrade, then I need them. So if a plumber called me today and said, hey, need any plumbing services? No, I'm fine, thank you. No amount of them saying, well, it's a special offer, and blah, blah, blah. No, I'm fine, thank you. Whereas if they were able to find me at the moment that I needed them, And this is where it takes a little bit more lateral thought. But if you found the person at the moment they needed you, that's very different. So for clear sales message, for example, I can't cold call people or cold email them and say, hey, had a look at your website. It's terrible, but don't worry because I can help you. That's horrendous. And we get this online. I get this quite a lot online for people like these online fitness coaches who are essentially saying, we've noticed you're a little bit podgy there, James, but don't worry because, that's what we do. We can help you. Oh, thanks very much for that. I really appreciate you taking the time there. So what I realized early doors is if I work with, when do you need a clear sales message? What's the trigger point for that? And it took me, the answer's simple, which I'll explain to you, but getting there took a little bit of thought for me. So when you create a new product or a new service, so going back to the mouse, what do we call it? How do we sell it? Why do people want to buy it? And then from there, I'll have to have a website made and I'll probably invest in visual branding. So I partner with visual branding agencies and marketing agencies and web companies, etc. Because the moment somebody comes through their doors and say, can we have a brand and a website? This is our mouse. This is it. Let's go. I say, great. Tell us all about it. And then they struggle. There's this dissonance where the mouse inventor, random example, thinks that the web company or the marketing agency, it's their job to help them sell the thing. No, it's their job just to facilitate what they've got and put it in a way that people can read it. So at that point, they refer them to me. So the trigger point for needing a clear sales message is a website, a brand, or a new product. So by me partnering with those people, I'm talking to people most of the time at the very moment they need me, which is very different. So I don't need to apply pressure or scarcity or anything else. They have a need. So yeah, I've been referred to you because my bath is leaking as we speak and I've been told that you're very good. Okay, great. And then I'll talk to them about it and then they'll buy. So that is one way we can get around this urgency issue. But I've always been very fortunate where even if I was sat here today on my last penny and my house is being repossessed while I'm on this podcast with you, I've always been able to manage my own energy where you'd never know. I've always been very cool, calm and collected. Mostly because it's not really any of your concern or business. So I'm trying to protect you from that. But what most people do is they'll put that onto you. So I'm feeling pressure and everything else. So I'll then just apply that pressure to you. That will actually push you away. Because when you push people, you push them away rather than draw them to it. And the whole cycle repeats. That was a very long answer to your question. But I hope
no, but it's you're looking, obviously taking the perspective of what you can do with the expertise that you bring to this, and I think that the message there is if somebody is finding themselves in that situation, it's reflecting, well, are you putting that on to someone else? And if so, there's some personal development work probably to be done in conjunction with having all of the kind of tools and tactics around the sales. And I love the analogy about the bathroom, and I think that is
I tempt fate every time.
It's but yeah, you're going to get an email from you tomorrow. It's like, oh my god.
Yeah. Do you know a plumber?
I really hope that doesn't happen. Although if it does, I'll take it as kind of like some witchy vibes. Where that interestingly kind of marries up with marketing, we were talking about in your example of the bathroom, is if that plumber was really good at sending you really useful newsletters or, coming up on your feed all the time in social, you'd be like, wait, I don't need a plumber right now. But when inevitably that tap does leak, they're going to be the forefront of your mind. And I think that's where you can kind of take that sales messaging and through content and marketing tactics, then that, and inevitably most people are not ready to buy, right? Not everybody is in that cycle. In fact, it's very, very, isn't it 3 to 5% people are actually kind of in market to buy?
It's low single figure percentage, yeah,
it's
100%.
Really low. So it can be really hard to be like, okay, let me find that customer whose bathroom is leaking, or that
That's a very
as an agency, who's that person who actually needs the ads right now. You can maybe do some stuff around it, but actually if you can be at the forefront of someone's mind with the right message, then not in an annoying way, then you will be kind of hopefully the first person they think of when they have the need for it.
Yeah.
Which brings us right back to kind of really having a mentality around selling being long term. So you've got 100%. Your sales of now, but it's also thinking, how am I building my future pipeline?
Yes, yeah, and you should always be building that. And it's funny. It's funny you say that in terms of like being seen and being there, because that I've got a podcast myself, and it's funny for me because I've got a daily podcast, and I'll be the first to tell you, it doesn't actually attract new clients to me, really. I've never really had any attributable clients that have come to me because they found me via my podcast. What it does do is help me to follow up people on a daily basis and stay in their ear, but in a I think you call it annoying, I say offensive, in a non-offensive way. So it's not just, here's an offer, here's an offer, here, do you want to buy? Here's an offer. I'm trying to leave them better than when I found them, give them something of value, a tidbit, a bit of advice, whatever. And then eventually, so they're being followed up every single day, essentially, eventually then they buy. And the interesting thing about podcasts and videos and things like that, going back to my kind of weird energy hippie vibes, is that people can size you up very quickly. So you can listen to me talk, watch me speak or whatever. You've already made a decision about whether you think I know what I'm talking about or not. And that's it. The hope is obviously you're convinced that I know what I'm talking about, but you get to decide, which again comes back to that notion of you're in control. And with a lot of my clients, potential clients, I will encourage them to read my LinkedIn recommendations, listen to my podcast, particularly if there's other stakeholders in the mix. So do that first, and then I'll have a conversation with them, because without me being there, you can judge me, which is important.
And what you're doing is building that trust, right? Because you're giving value, and you do. And anyone listening to this, please go and follow James. He every single day, and we were just talking beforehand, so I don't know how you do it. Every single day you release like I would say bite size, which is great, because nobody, let's be honest, no one's going to listen to a 45-minute episode every day, much as they may love you. But for you to break down all of those concepts into something that is pure value, you're not selling, pure value every single day, is building trust. And there's a lot we can all learn from that, because the right people will then be attracted to that energy or that strategy, whatever language you kind of want to give it. So yeah.
And I learned a very interesting thing with that, because you say about the 45-minute podcast, nobody wants to listen to that. That's very true. However, I've had people say to me, and again, this is I just kind of lucked into this. I chose short podcasts because I've got a short attention span, and I can just, without sounding too big-headed, I can explain things really quickly, really simply. I don't need to string it out for 10 minutes. I can do it in about 30 seconds to a minute, so why bother? I've had people come to me and say they've listened to like 20, 50, 100 episodes, or certainly like 5 or 10 on the bounce. So they've listened to like an hour's worth of me, but because it's chopped up into those episodes, it's been easier for them to do. It's a bit like on Netflix, we'll watch a series that lasts 4 to 6 hours, but you wouldn't sit down and watch a 6-hour film, would you?
That's so true. And honestly, what you just said there, I think almost just defines this entire conversation. It's breaking things down, making them manageable and simple. And whether that's a Netflix versus a documentary, or whether that's a sales message, it's how can we simplify and chop things down.
And you're lowering the barrier as well. So if I choose, so some people, there's one guy in particular, very funny. He listens to me every day while he's on his dog walk. And I changed the time I published my podcast in the morning. He emailed me and said, have you changed the time? This is really annoying, because I walked my dog at a certain time and it didn't come up in Spotify. So it's like, oh my God, there's people out there literally like depend on this. It's really
That's
weird.
Amazing. It's good to walk the dog at a different time.
So,
what have you done?
I moved it back now. And then, hold on, what's the point I was going to make? That's it. So you've got the choice. So, and it's a lower barrier to entry. So him deciding to listen to an hour of me, that's a big, or an hour of anything, that's a big investment of his time. If he just happens to listen to 2 minutes and then with Spotify, goes to the next one, goes to the next one, goes to the next one. And before he knows it, he's done 45 minutes to an hour. That's more conducive, because at any point he could have said, no, that's it. And it's easier for him to do that. So my methodology is looking at the science of that. Like, well, why is that the case? And how can we then harness that in other areas of business? And how can we use that? Not in a manipulative and contrived way, but if I make myself easier to deal with and easier to buy from, then by definition, I'm easier to buy from.
It's brilliant. And I want to move on, because there's something I really want to speak to you about, which I know that a big thing that you talk about is the selling confidence.
Yes.
So, and for you, that's kind of an outcome as well of the clients that work with you. So can you tell me a bit more about that? Because confidence is such a hard thing to kind of like bottle up. If we could like, walk into like Boots and like buy some confidence, like great. So how does that work with working with you?
Well, selling confidence comes from having a clear sales message. So me using that terminology, this is the airplane seat and the holiday thing. So unless you've got a technical, hard to explain offering, you might not think you need a clear sales message, but most people want selling confidence. But it comes from that. So if this was a pitch call, for example, explaining what I do to you and how I do it. So you'll notice, so I look at you won't notice, I look at the lens of my camera, which is up here. You're actually down here on my screen. So if I'm talking to your face, as I would do as a human, it looks like this, but I'm talking to the lens. So you get the sense I'm looking at you and giving you my attention. So
I was not doing that, so you've just thank you.
sorry.
I'll be now doing what you do.
That's not me telling you off, I promise. And on previous cameras, I've literally had like a little sticker. It's like, look here, stupid kind of thing.
Oh, it's hard to do because then I'm not looking at you, so I feel like I'm.
Well,
yeah, okay, I get it.
you're in my peripheral vision, but what I want you to feel is that I'm paying attention to you. Obviously, I am, but I'm paying attention to you. But if this was a sales call and you start asking me tricky questions, but I've got answers to all of them, and they're all quite structured. So how does it? Well, let me explain it to you. It takes about 3 weeks. In the first week, we do the blah blah. But at no point am I reading anything or breaking eye contact with you. That's the confidence piece. So having an answer for everything. That's where selling confidence comes from. And understanding that being a good communicator, surprise, that's it. That's all you have to do. And the first time you have a conversation where you have an answer for all the questions and you're happy to push people away if they're not a good fit, etc., but they buy anyway because it turns they are a good fit, you only have to do it once and then you're cured, essentially. A lot of my clients and students, then they're cured and then they really believe in it. It's not that they doubt it, but they have to see it work first time. But it just comes down to literally knowing what to say to sell, because most people don't know what to say or what to do when it comes to selling to people.
And going back to your BNI clients that you mentioned earlier that you kind of tested your methodology with, obviously if they were in BNI, presumably that they were reasonably seasoned in what they do. So I would imagine some people would be like, oh, James, I don't need to work with you. I know what I'm doing. But actually the reality is, and you specifically said, if I say to you, what do you do? Or why should I work with you? That you could immediately, if there's a hesitation there, then that's already creating a barrier. So did you, with those seasoned business owners, did they get that confidence then off the back of that, where they were able to stand up and relay that message with more clarity and confidence?
Yeah, 100%. But you make a really good point, because I do come across some people who, without sounding rude, aren't very good at communicating their offering. But at no point would I approach them like the people approaching me. Hey, you're looking a bit chubby there, we can help you. I wouldn't approach them and say, hey, you're struggling there, but don't worry, I can help. At no point when I do that. They have to come to the conclusion themselves. So I might say, if here are some questions to answer. If you don't think you can answer them, then you probably need me and I can help you. But that's it. There's no pressure. I'm very much an attraction marketer, an attraction salesperson. I'm trying to get you to come to me rather than I'm chasing you. And I have a mantra of don't chase them, replace them. So for me, I'm trying to open up as many conversations as possible every day, online, offline, wherever, because I know that over time they'll develop, and that's far more conducive than me just trying to force myself upon people. Because if you don't think you need what I'm selling, no amount of pressure and forcing is really going to make a difference. And we don't like to go back to feeling in control. We don't like to feel like we're not in control. But yeah, absolutely. In BNI, and of course, BNI was the perfect setting for me to realize this is what I want to do, because every week you have to stand up, give your 60-second pitch. Hi, I'm James and I sell widgets and blah, blah, blah. But I had people in the room that once I worked with them, other people in the BNI group, particularly at like their feature presentation, their 10 minutes, said, oh my God, I've been in the room with you for like 5 years. Now I know what you do. So even though every week they'd heard this is what they do, nothing landed. But then it did, after we'd clarified things for them, because we bridged that gap of what that means is why should you care, and we broke it down as simple as possible.
And what I love about that story, actually, that you, correct me if I got this wrong, but you went to BNI when you hadn't actually even
I had no idea
about what you were going to do, and that almost kind of speaks to you kind of, I don't know, practicing what you preach, because you went along to this meeting and thought, let me find out what people actually need.
Yeah.
Which is the starting point of sales. You didn't go in saying, this is what I'm going to do. You were like, I know that I don't want to do this thing. Was it BMW?
It was Mercedes, yeah.
Mercedes. Sorry, Mercedes.
Oh no, that's all right. I'm not a big fan of them. It's another story for another day.
But you knew you didn't want to be there anymore, and I think a lot of people would think, well, I need to know in my head what I'm going to sell, what I'm going to offer, build the website, do it all, and then go out to people.
Yeah.
Whereas you did the complete opposite and did the listening piece first. And I think that in itself is...
Well, I now know it's called product market fit. So I'm literally essentially saying, what problem do you have? Oh, great. Well, I can solve that problem. And there we go. That was it. But no, my own 60 seconds at the start was, on paper, I've got the best job in the world. I work from home. This is pre-COVID. I work from home. I get a new Mercedes every 6 months. Everything's wonderful. But I hate my life, and I'm trying to find out what I want to do. I think I want to start my own business, but I don't, I'm going to teach people how to sell, but I don't know what that looks like. So I'm just looking for help and support, and I'll work with anybody free to help them. That was pretty much how my 60 seconds went. And I think at the start, and I think it was my going back to honesty and candor and things like that. The world is full of people that want to help you. If only you would ask them. That's what I really took from that. I had so many people help me for free also. Anything, they would fall over themselves to help me. And I don't think that's just a BNI specific thing. And I pay that forward myself as much as possible because it's just the right thing to do.
Fabulous. I love that.
We're getting deep now, aren't we?
We're going deep. No, but I think there's, at the end of the day, we're humans, and we can have blueprints and tactics and messaging and all of that. But actually the power of kind of that human connection, especially since, you mentioned COVID and, AI and all of the things that means that we're kind of at risk of moving away from that connectivity of humans. And I think it is really important, in the context of sales or anything else, to kind of really bring it back to that. And we talk about kind of like, the businesses we work with is like, well, we work with humans, right? The business doesn't run itself yet.
One of my favorite questions is, what's the difference between B2C and B2B? Like,
nothing.
It's the same. It's B2H. Like, you're just selling to people. But what matters is what they're looking for, because if you're in a business, you're going to have different motivations than if you're a consumer, but you're still just selling to people. That's it.
Yeah.
Red herring.
It's really, really huge. And and I think if you can kind of go into the even if you're selling to like the CEO of Mercedes or someone like that, they are still a human. They are still going to have their reasons and their barriers, and also they'll have made up their mind. So you're right, the motivation will be different, but it's, for now, still a human we're selling to. I want to caveat that, because in 5 years that might be completely dated.
I was going to say, you've totally just dated this podcast, but that's okay.
It will change. I know that you have a very strong opinion about follow-up, which again is very different to, I think most salespeople will say to you, it's all about the follow-up. You need to follow up 16 times on average, and then people will buy. And you have a different view on this. And I can't not bring that into this.
I do. And I've got to be careful, because some people think, like, what? Don't follow up at all? He's mad. No. Follow people up, of course, but there's ways and means of doing it. So we alluded to earlier of following up without being offensive or without being annoying. So I did some research on this, and I found, I can't share them here, unfortunately, but there's 18 different ways you can follow people up without annoying them and getting on their nerves. Most people, it's just checking in, just touching base. Have you had any thoughts? My favorite one is James with a question mark, or just a question, or the funny gifs
just
of somebody looking at their watch. Yeah, it's just, it adds nothing. And for me, so if you look at your email inbox or your LinkedIn inbox, and somebody's following up, checking in, touching base, blah, 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 it doesn't drive you any further to making a decision. If anything, it's just a bit of an annoyance. You've not gone back to them because it's not a priority for you right now, or you don't actually want to do it. So going back to this, what that means is thing, we've got to bridge that gap. If you really want something, so if my bath is leaking as I'm talking to you, that plumber should not need to follow me up and ask me if I've had any thoughts or touch my base. I'll be chasing him down saying, Jesus Christ, I need you, please come and help me. So if we really want to buy something, we don't really need following up necessarily, but it's this notion of don't annoy people. So always lead with value. Leave them better than when you found them. And that, for me, that's very straightforward, because for clear sales message in particular, and it's not contrived because I have a lot of thoughts all the time, I would follow you up and say, I've had some thoughts about what we can do with your messaging. Are you free next week for 10, 15 minutes? Just want to run something past you. If you don't respond to that, you're probably not that interested, and that's okay. But if you are interested in doing this, that should be exciting for you. And for me, it's real, because I have ideas all the time about this stuff. But it's giving them something to bring them back in, not just, I cut and pasted 1 million crappy follow-ups to 1 million people today. And we have this notion of, what's the word? Progress by volume. So I feel accomplished today because I followed up 50 people. I'd rather you followed up 3 people, but you did it properly, because then they're actually going to buy from you. So my approach isn't don't follow people up. Of course, we need to follow people up. But there's ways and means of doing it. Why do you think I've got a podcast? So I've got 900 plus episodes. You're being followed up if you listen to me on the podcast. You just don't realize it, ultimately, because it's not offensive. It's not obtrusive in any way. That's my
So the
take.
follow-up is continuing to be on somebody's radar and giving value
Yeah.
so that when they are ready, they come to you, as opposed to continually repitching the
Poking
same
them.
thing.
Yeah, and which you can do, but there's a limit to that. But if it's not of value, I've just seen this and I've just spent, you've got a son, he might like this, and anything at all. Like there's all a million different ways you can do it, but it's about, and here's another word for you, propinquity. So propinquity is exposure. So I've got feelings about women's makeup and hair care products and stuff I'm never going to use, but because I've driven past those adverts enough times and seen them enough times, I've got opinion, I've got a relationship with that brand. It's the same here. And if the only time I see that brand is when they're saying, do you want to buy, 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 it's very difficult to have a relationship with them. Whereas if every time I have a relationship and it's something interesting and funny and, I never thought about that and blah, 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 it's more conducive. It's more conducive. But yeah, there's 18 proper ways to do it that I found out in there, because it drives me nuts. And when people reach out to me, just checking in, just touching base, I just take screenshots of it. I black out their name, obviously, because I'm not into shaming people, but I use it in my Hall of Fames, like how not to do it, basically.
And it still blows my mind that you have 900 kind of methodologies within it, and none of them they're all unique to each other. So yeah, that's definitely amazing. Just to wrap up, I always ask my guests, and this is part of brand mixology, because I believe that everything is about the mix. It's not one shoe fits all. Is that a thing? One shoe fits all, one size fits all. One of those. So what I ask my guests is to come up with one word of something that you would put into the success cocktail.
There's actually a jar,
and then one thing that you are going to ask everybody to put on ice, and I will write them out on your behalf. So we'll start with the cocktail, because it's nearly 11 o'clock, so that feels completely reasonable.
It's happy hour somewhere, isn't it?
Exactly.
So the word to put in, there'll be no surprises here, is the word clear.
Clear. I had a feeling that might come up. I love
Funnily
it.
enough, but I'll explain it to you, because clear, I chose the word clear because I liked it, and I had a moment of embarrassment at BNI. There we go. I had a moment of embarrassment at BNI where in my feature 10-minute presentation, somebody said in a supportive way, James, what does it mean to be clear? And I went bright red, and I actually didn't have an answer.
Did you have to go back to your methodology? I need to go and do my homework.
This was the early days before I really knew. I was like, I don't know. It's just clear and easy. So it's like circular reason, right? It's clear because it's clear. So, oh no, that's terrible. So I went back and I really looked at it and I thought, well, what does make something clear? And so I turned clear into an acrostic. So an acrostic is like at school, you did a poem, it'd be your name and each letter is a characteristic of yourself. So clear actually stands for client focused, logical, engaging, accurate, and results driven. If you're adhering to those 5 things, then that's technically how it is actually clear, from an email to a social media post. Client focused, logical, engaging, accurate, results driven. It spells the word clear. Isn't that clever? But that's how I know that something is clear.
Absolutely. That is like music to my marketing brain.
And going back to my earlier point, if I can explain that to you without reading anything and refer, obviously I've done it a few times now, but I'm not reading anything, that should also help you to give a sense of, he knows what he's talking about, and I can go off on a tangent on any of those points. And that's what we need in a sales conversation, is that I come across as confident, and that gives you confidence in me.
Love that. Thank you. And what is something that you are like, come on, everybody, let's stop doing it. Let's put it on ice.
Well, this is a funny one, because on the face of it, the word clever seems all right, doesn't it? But clever or cleverness, because I see so much messaging where we prioritize being clever over being clear. So going back to these abstract names of things, pink elephant, blah, 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 whatever, or I've named my business because it's the Latin word for deodorant or whatever. And it's all, I don't think there is one, but it's all meaningful to me as a person. I've never used that example before. It's all meaningful to me as a person, but not to you as a buyer. So you think you're being clever, because another one that gets me is most people guess in .com for a website, right? They guess in .com. But the amount of people that have .io or .something else, well, that's great. But if you haven't got the .com, you're going to come unstuck, unfortunately. So cleverness and prioritizing cleverness over clearness is what needs to go in the bin. So it has to be clear first, then we'll get fancy with it. I like wordplay and stuff. It's all good. We can do that. But if they don't understand it, and if you try to be too clever, it's hugely expensive.
And actually, you just gave a perfect example, because clear for you was clear, and then the what did you call it? I always thought it was an acronym.
No, an acronym is like BBC, where it doesn't spell a word, British Broadcasting Corporation. An acrostic is where it spells a word.
All along.
So there are two parts of my methodology. This I've got so many. Then there's a mesostic. So if you ever had it where the words intersect like this, but there's a word down the middle, often you get it for families where the surname runs down the middle.
Yes.
That's called a mesostic, where it goes vertically. So there's three parts of my methodology right there. So it's the specificity of all these different things we've got at play. But the trouble is, people jump straight to being clever, and it rhymes and it sounds good. But I still don't understand if I want a plane seat or a holiday, and I still don't buy.
I feel like after the conversation, I need to go and redo everything in my. Thanks, James. It's been a really expensive call.
I'm sure you're fine.
Because as you've been talking, I've been thinking, oh dear.
Well, how do you think I feel? I talk about this stuff all day long. I'm terrified of being judged. I've got to make sure I'm hitting all of these points all of the time.
Well, you do, don't you? But luckily, I think you more than have the credibility. I mean, 600 billion in sales and not missing a target is pretty good.
Every month I worried. I always make that point. I never took it for granted.
But many people worry and still don't achieve that. So
yes, true. Very true.
There is that.
Very true.
You did say at the start of this that you could talk about this all day, and I feel that we probably could, because there's definitely a lot more in. But I think there's so many takeaways from that. So, James, how do people work with you? I think there's a number of ways that people work with you, and we've already spoken with, and I cannot recommend enough going into following you, and I will put all of the links on the show notes, so that they can listen to your snippets. And I think you also put them out visually, don't you? On LinkedIn, right?
So my I was going to say my laptop, that's not right. My podcast is called The Daily Sales Message. So every day I share a little snippet of advice. And it's funny enough, it helps people to feel more confident and sell more stuff. That's kind of the intention every day. But yeah, it goes on Spotify. It doesn't go on LinkedIn every day. I share other things on LinkedIn, but it's on YouTube. It goes all over the place. But I do that daily. I live on LinkedIn, essentially. So I put out content daily on LinkedIn. And then in terms of how people work with me, so I've kind of got two things really. One is Clear Sales Message Consultancy, where I work with businesses and clients one-on-one and creating their messaging for them and their teams, etc. And then the second one, which is actually being developed at the moment, so this will also date this podcast, is more of a group program, which is coming out shortly, called What to Say to Sell. What to Say to Sell. And it's taking all of these frameworks and putting it into a way where people can follow it and do this themselves without my intervention. I'm there in the background helping them, but it's without my intervention. But those are the two things.
James, thank you so much.
Pleasure.
And I'll make sure that all of the things that you've mentioned are linked in the show notes, so that people can, at the very least, follow you and your daily sales messages, which is not actually about sales, it's about communicating clearly the value that you bring to your customers. So thank you so much, James, and I look forward to speaking with you again soon.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed this episode, I would love it if you'd subscribe and share it with somebody who's building things their own way too. This show exists to challenge the default path, to mix things up and create a brand, a business and a life we actually want. Thanks for listening. See you next time.